magician, you did that.
So we're here discussing with incumbent representative from constituency 4, Mr. Lindsey Grant. Mr. Grant, elections is within a couple of days. How confident are you that you can bring this seat, keep this seat yellow, orange for the government?
Well, first I want to say is that the good people of constituency number 4, they reposed their trust and their confidence in me in 2015. On my part, I think I have delivered for them, and so I'm asking the good people again to repose their trust and their confidence in me in 2020 going forward.
Oh, okay. What outline some of the projects or the main accomplishments that Lindsey Grant would have accomplished, one, at the constituency level, and looking at the broader context of St. Kitts and Nevis, you as a representative and as a minister, what are some of your major accomplishments that you would have done over the last 5 years?
Okay. Well, I can first point to the Old Road Rehabilitation Project, which is a major project in the Old Road Bay region, costing the government of St. Kitts and Nevis somewhere in the region of $31 million. That's been a matter that has been plaguing the people who've been plying that route for a number of years. I myself have been affected by it. I'm sure you remember after the last hurricane, that road was cut off. We had to traverse the eastern end of the island to get to Bastille. So that is a major accomplishment by the Team Unity government. One that was not even in the manifesto, but we had the financial resources and the capital to be able to accomplish it. Second project is in Old Road, is the Old Road Fisheries Project, some $7 million, which would now aid the ability of the fishermen in the area to ply their trade. I just was there even today, and the fishermen have commended the project as how it has been evolving in the first phase. The second phase is a little marina in there. I think it's 24 slips. So that is progressing nicely. I have done the rehabilitation work on the Challengers playing field. That has been completed. We're in the process right now as we speak to light up the Virtuals playing field. And going forward, I intend to put a world-class running track on Virtuals playing field. We are lighting up the basketball court in Virtuals and also lighting up the netball court. So a significant amount of work is progressing. We've built the roads in Virtuals, a new set of roads, opening up some lands in that area. We are right now, as we speak, rebuilding roads in Harry Phipps and Corn Phipps, which had been left with dirt roads for the last 25 years. And now we're putting roads in there. So a significant amount of work is being done in constituency number 4. But I would say, my job and my work has not all been in capital projects. In fact, if you were to ask me what is my most admired project over the last 5 years, I would have to tell you it rests in 2 projects. One is my breakfast project, where I provide breakfast for young people going to the Tyrrell Williams Primary School. I started that project with 25 students, Monday and Wednesday of the week. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning with my wife preparing the breakfast at home, and then it blossomed. It is now at 125 breakfasts every morning to provide breakfasts to the people, the young people, the students of Tyrrell Williams Primary School. So successful has that program been that the Virtuals High School has asked me to now give 25 breakfasts to the students of the Virtuals High, and so it's now at 125. It has blossomed so much that I had to go and then buy 2 commercial stoves to be able to produce the breakfasts every day. And so I love that program because it's a program that I run. It's a program not run anything by the government. It's pure voluntary services by the people of the constituencies. The other program is the HARP program, is a homework and reading program, which is for students who may be slow or want extra work. We get teachers to volunteer their time, their energy, and their services to do that, a number of students, and we have about 50 students in that program. So those two programs I really love. Going forward, for me in the constituency, I want to put down 3 playgrounds, one in Conyers, one in Middle Island, one in Old Road, because I think we need to bring back some of the family camaraderie in the community. So that is going to be my aim. Of course, I'll continue this thrust to the housing projects by the government, and I really want also to begin a new housing project in Challengers, which is Tier 1 Heights housing project, that I really need to accomplish over the next 5 years. If I accomplish those, I think I would have done a magnificent turnaround of the constituency, in that 5-year period. So I'm grateful for the people for their support, their support, and of course I'm hoping that come June the 5th, Friday, they'll repose their trust and their confidence again in me to lead the constituency forward.
Okay, looking at a broader context, that's both St. Kitts and Nevis. What would you say is your major accomplishment as the Minister of International Trade, the Minister of Tourism?
Well, I think the record speaks for itself. When I took over the portfolio of the Minister of Tourism, cruise passengers were at 638,000. I increased that in 5 years to 1.2 million, 100% increase over what was there before. That is significant. 2 years back to back with 1 million passengers per year. Anywhere I go across the region, various ministers of tourism ask me, what is happening in St. Kitts? How you guys have been able to do that? And it's all about the hard work that I've put in to engage the cruise lines, engage the executive, come from behind my desk, engage them frontally and tell them, look, this is what we have to offer. We're not offering something like the others are offering. We offer a unique product, a product steeped in history, in culture. And if you immerse yourselves in that, you're going to understand why St. Kitts and Nevis is at the top of their game.
Let us look at stay-over tourism. What are you doing in that regard?
Well, stay-over tourism again has been on increase year after year after year. This year before COVID came, we were up to 14%, I think it was, and we were really on our way again to break another record this year. But COVID, of course, has put a wrench in our wheels, so to speak. But I believe once we get over this challenging and difficult period of COVID, I hope that we will be open up for business maybe about September, October, November. We have to do things a bit differently, of course, to stay in the game. But I think all in all, the future bodes well for St. Kitts and Nevis in the industry.
What are your major plans should Lindsey Grant win constituency 4, get back into office? One, do you foresee yourself being the Minister of Tourism, or would you like to stay in that portfolio?
Well, under the Constitution, the allotment of portfolios and ministries is at the behest of the Prime Minister. I hope that he recognizes the work I would have done in the last 5 years, and he would recognize that he needs to ensure that I continue the good work. But whatever ministry I'm put into, I perform. What I would say is that over the next 5 years, if I were to be the Minister of Tourism again, we are going to concentrate on a couple of areas. I want to make sure that the School of Excellence, the Hospitality School of Excellence, is built and up and running, because I believe that's where the future is. To make sure that our people are trained, well trained, trained. Because if we are running a first-class industry, we must have first-class training. So I cannot rest over the next 5 years until I produce the Hospitality School of Excellence.
There was some talk about, because we have a new cruise pier one. There was some talk about constructing a cruise pier in your constituency. Is that something you would be pushing for? Should you be re-elected again?
I would not push for it at this juncture. I believe we have to see how the second cruise pier performs within the industry. We have to make sure that the financial gains that we expect to derive from it happens before we venture into a third cruise pair. I think that's somewhere down the road, and maybe not in my time, I might say. But I think I want to concentrate to maximize the benefits with the second cruise pair before I even begin to consider a third one.
Now that you talk about the second cruise pair, I don't think people fully understand the importance of the second cruise pair as well as the tourism sector to St. Kitts and Nevis. If you could just take a minute to explain to people who are listening and looking how important tourism and that second cruise pair is to St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, it's very important because in fact we've lost a lot of ships just because some ships don't want to go to the cargo pier and they refuse to go to the cargo pier. So when you are placed in terms of the ability to be at the cruise pier or the cargo pier, once they recognize that they're at the cargo pier, most times they pull out. So we've lost a lot of business through that, and it is for that reason we decided that look, we need to have the second cruise pair. But also, probably even more significant is the fact that because we didn't have the second cruise pair, it was hampering the distribution of goods in St. Kitts and Nevis, whereby once a ship came in and it had to go to the cargo pier, we couldn't offload the goods that probably would have come in via the cargo ships, and that was hampering the business community in St. Kitts. And so we decided, no, we had to do something about this, to curtail this, if not stop it. And so that again is another reason why we had to go that way. Excuse me.
As you wind down here, what would you say is the tourism ministry focus should Lindsey Grant get back into office? Because we're in the age of COVID-19. What's the major focus and the direction in which you want to take tourism in this age right now? Because as you said earlier, your focus is basically coming on to the end of the year for tourism basically to get back to the position where it is. Minister of Tourism Lindsey Grant, where is Lindsey Grant looking to take tourism?
Well, I'm looking to take tourism at the very top in the Eastern Caribbean for certain. But as you recognize, we have now begun to build a roadmap as to how we're going to begin to receive visitors after COVID. The protocols have to be different, the protocols have to be changed, and so my team is now ensuring that we have a document in place, because we're going to have to train and hire persons who will now inspect hotels to see if they have the requisites or the prerequisites for opening. The restaurants, all these are going to take on changes, the bars. And so we are really in a different space. And so for me, it's going to be a learning curve. For all of us, it's going to be a learning curve in whatever industry we're in. But if you look at the World Tourism and Travel Council statistics over the last years, tourism plays a significant role in our economic development. And so therefore we have to look at it carefully, we have to nurture it, we have to preserve it, because COVID-19 has taught us a lesson. The lesson it has taught us, I believe, is that I'm certain we didn't recognize or understand the full impact of the tourism industry to our economy. We now see it. The World Travel and Tourism Council says 1 in every 4 jobs is related either directly or indirectly to tourism. In fact, the last statistic I saw is like 62%. I mean, that is significant. It pumps nearly $500 million into this economy every year. I mean, this is significant. And so we have to have a proper roadmap as to what we are going to do. And so my team is gathering the information, preparing their documentation, and I'm hoping that by November, when we probably open to the cruise ships, etc., that we would be ready to take St. Kitts and Nevis again to one of the best destinations in the Eastern Caribbean, if not the entire Caribbean.
Well, there you had it. We were just had a little sit down with incumbent representative for constituency number 4, Pam Lindsey Grant. And he basically shared some of what he would have accomplished over the last 5 years and some of his priority areas going forward should he be re-elected. Well, as I would say, June 5th is elections day, and it's your constitutional right to go out and cast your vote for whomever you wish. So please do go out and exercise your franchise. We'll be back again with another candidate from the incumbent Team Unity Coalition.
I've always wanted to be a part of the solution. I've always wanted to be in a position where I can help people in a meaningful way. And since I've been about 10, 11, I've been intimately involved in the political framework of St. Kitts and Nevis, always reading, always following who's who in the politics. And so for me, it was really an easy transition when I really got into the fray. I think I probably started just after I came back from university in 1991. I began in the party in various positions and then leading up to the political leadership of the People's Action Movement. I want to concentrate in a significant and very focused way to ensure that the young people of my constituency are engaged in a significant way for development. I think we have a lot of raw talent in the constituency, and they just need a guiding force, a guiding hand. And so I want to ensure that the next 5 years sees a lot of development of the human capital, the young people in my constituency. That if I accomplish, I would say then I would have accomplished much. I want to say that I want to thank actually the people, the good people of constituency number 4 for reposing their trust and their confidence in me to lead them from 2015 to 2020. And I'm thanking them in advance for reposing their trust again in me come June the 5th, 2020.
Look how the place again. Look how the place full of energy. When we say energy, me talk about unity. Look how me go link with me brother them.
St. Kitts and Nevis, the date is set and the heat is on, and there's only one place to get the latest news and insights on the upcoming 2020 general election. ISKN, that's ISKN, Channel 95 on Ultra TV. Watch in-depth talks on issues that matter most. Go digital and take part in our nightly virtual public meetings. Celebrate 5 years of incredible progress with performances from the hottest local and regional entertainers. See the world through the eyes of our nation's youth. Get to know your future leaders and their plans for a stronger, safer future. All day, every day. ISKN has you covered. Your all-access link to the political arena is in St. Kitts and Nevis. My rights, my choice, my future. Channel 95 is my ISKN. Only on Ultra TV.
It's so amazing.
You are an ambassador, Mr. Powell. Tell us a bit about how you got involved in politics.
Born into politics. My first great uncle was the founder of the Workers' League, which was the predecessor to the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. My uncle was the founder of the People's Action Movement. And so for my whole life, politics has always been around me. So I really couldn't escape it. And then, especially having gone away to study, come back home, started working here as a lawyer, I observed what was happening in St. Kitts and Nevis at the time. I did not agree with the policies and the stance taken by the then Labour administration under Denzel Douglas. And I didn't like what was happening in my country. And I thought that I could do more than just be one of those people who stands on the side of the road and just criticizes and talks. I thought that I was in a position to contribute to the change that I wanted to see, and so I threw my hat in the bullring, as they say, and the rest is history.
As somebody young, and you're basically involved in politics, you ran in 2015, you were unsuccessful, but as some would say, you made inroads in terms of your predecessor. So How do you think you're going to fare this time around heading into this election?
I'm very confident that I will be successful this time. The last 5 years has been a learning experience for me. It has been an opportunity to mature politically, and I've been able to use the opportunities that have been made available to me and my constituency by this community administration to ensure that a number of the projects that I had promised I would ensure would happen if elected were actually done, even though I was not elected. And so I have been able to start creating that change that I want to see. And this time around, I expect to be successful and to be able to continue that goal and continue that path.
As a young person, as a young candidate, how do you get the young people in your constituency? We know constituency 2 and some of the areas in there specifically has been some particular spots, as one of a better phrase. How do you get the young people to understand that elections are important and it's their constitutional right to go out and exercise their franchise?
I think that our young people today are a bit more policy focused and policy driven than, say, 10, 15 years ago. No longer do our young people say, well, my grandmother was a PAM, so I have to vote PAM, I come from a Labour family. They're a lot more independent in thinking, and they're a lot more aware of the issues and how these issues affect them. There's a lot more want for things like jobs, land, houses, educational opportunities, and so young people are now being able to have those discussions that was not happening before. There's a big difference between speaking to them and speaking with them, and I think that I'm able to speak with them, to relate to them, to understand them. I'm not that old, I'm actually quite young, I'm in my mid-30s, and so to be able to relate to them on their level and to share the same new way of thinking, new form of politics with them, it's good for us to be on the same page. It makes it a lot easier for me.
What would you tell a young person out there who's saying, I really don't care about going out to vote, politics is not my thing, it's not important to me, it's more of an old people thinking and so forth? What do you tell somebody out there to get them to get up off the chair, the sofa, the couch and go out on the 5th to vote?
Well, I'm sure that young person wants a job, wants money in their pockets, wants to be able to go online, wants an opportunity to go to school. These opportunities are made available dependent on the policies that exist in the country. Those policies are dependent on whoever is governing, and it can mean a difference between 17% VAT on food and no VAT on food. It can mean a difference between the opportunity to have affordable housing or not. And so you try to educate them, to guide them and show them, look, every vote counts, your opinion matters, and you're playing a role in this process determines whether life is going to be harder or better for you.
What is General Powell's focus if he wins constituency 2 and his government gets into office and his coalition gets into office to form the government?
When I win and get into office, my focus will be to bring back real representation to the people of Central Bastille, and thereby affording them a lot of individual opportunities that they may have not been, that they have not had access to, simply because they've not had a parliamentarian or elected representative looking out for them, fighting for them, and not having an elected representative in the government around that cabinet table, having access to resources and making those resources directly available to them.
What is General Powell's focus if he gets into, well, when, as you said, when? What ministry or so would you be interested in being the minister of?
I get the question a lot. I mean, I can see myself performing in a number of different ministries. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in Central Bastille, and so, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is trade, well, infrastructure to improve the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges at the mouths of Westbourne and College Street Guts, for example, I can see myself doing that. If it's Ministry of Trade, I can see myself doing that and using that as an opportunity to create more entrepreneurial opportunities for the people of Central Bastille. It could be tourism and use that to create more jobs, create more opportunities in terms of entrepreneurial endeavors for the people. It could be housing to create the housing opportunities that are necessary for the people of Central Bastille, bearing in mind the limited resource of land that exists. So I can perform in any ministry because I see how I can improve the lives of my people using any one of them.
Okay, looking at your government over the last 5 years, what would you say for you was one of the standout projects, initiative, idea that the government would have undertaken over that time?
It's a long list, but I think for me and for the people of Central Bastille, it must be the government's ability to curb crime and to reduce the crime rate, especially serious crime. The Peace Initiative has tremendously benefited the people of my constituency in particular. It was always known, particularly in Matinite, to be one of those hotspots for serious crimes. And so to be able to have this peace, this sense of freedom return to Central Bastille, to have that sense of camaraderie with who were once rival gangs not too long ago. Less funerals, less mothers and sisters and family members mourning. More opportunities for these guys who were caught up in the gangs. They know keeping notes, proper jobs. They're now starting their own businesses. I believe that initiative has been the most substantive to the people of Central Bastille and certainly to me.
Okay, put you on the spot here. What do you think is one of the projects that you think over the 5 years of government that the government did not accomplish that you would want to see accomplished?
I think in terms of our manifesto promises in 2015, we would have been able to start just about everyone. Whatever we weren't able to complete, we at least were able to start it. And I believe the Bastille High School, perhaps because that's my alma mater, that's where I went, not being able to build that in this term is a bit disappointing, but at the same time, I understand why. And I understand that this team unity administration took the necessary precautions, it took the necessary time to ensure that people understood, in the face of all the distractions, all the misinformation, all the lies that the opposition had been spreading, we took the initiative to slow things down and let the people understand, let them be comfortable with what was being done. And at the end of the day, I think that is important. We've been able to maintain, although it was a temporary school, maintain a system that still created the education opportunities, still maintain the highest educational system in the region. And so I look forward to the completion of that project in the second term of Team Unity.
Okay, how much of being an ambassador at large is laid a platform for you to enter into politics, and how is that what have it taught you in terms of becoming a minister?
It certainly gives you the opportunity to represent your country, not just your constituents, but the country, which I had the opportunity to do both locally and afar on numerous occasions. It allowed me the opportunity to be able to integrate, to discuss, to negotiate with different government organizations as well as foreign entities in order to improve certain aspects of sports and culture. And so it really sort of gave me that opportunity to show that I can represent, to show that I can work on behalf of my country. And it also gave me the opportunity to really meet some people and network create those connections that can only enhance my performance as a minister of government and as a representative for the people.
Okay, so how much has Ambassador Powell has been involved basically in music festival for the last 5 years? How is that, looking at how that has impacted St. Kitts and Nevis, how are you going to use that as a platform to push St. Kitts and Nevis on the map in terms of tourism and benefiting the country as a whole?
Well, I think the proof is in the pudding. It has done that for itself already. When you look at where the St. Kitts Music Festival was 5 years ago when we took over and where it is now, it's really chalk and cheese. It was a festival that was waning, similarly to many others in the region. The numbers were falling, the profitability was, well, there's no profitability. And so we were able to turn it around. I think for me what it has shown is that fresh ideas, fresh ways of thinking, bringing new people on, being able to utilize local talent, prove that we have what it takes. Here we don't need to rely on outside resources as much as we used to. And so being able to do that, being able to maintain the standards, to utilize new local resources, we've been able to streamline it and really produce what is now a true festival and not just 3 nights of concerts.
Okay, General Powell, looking at sports in St. Kitts and Nevis, what more do you think, or what idea would you bring? Because that's one way that people look to see, to get more youth involved and get them off the street corners. What more do you think we can do here in St. Kitts and Nevis to actually push sports and get more of those young people who are on the streets involved in these day-to-day activities? Because when we look around, people are saying we're not using sports as a tool that we should. So what more do you think can be done?
I think we need to begin by implementing a national sports policy, which is something that you'll find in the 2020 Team Unity Manifesto. A national sports policy. I'd like to see the implementation of a national sports council. I believe we need to look to see how we can introduce more sporting disciplines and make, have more options in terms of sports for our young people. And simply just work on what we have. Trying to ensure that we maintain the facilities that we have, see how we can upgrade them, having the necessary ancillary facilities to assist in terms of high performance centers and that sort of thing. And one of the things that I would really like to see us pushing some more is the influx of various sporting teams and clubs from outside of St. Kitts, particularly if we can get professional sporting teams coming in and having take advantage of that, maybe have some opportunities for training and the passage of knowledge and technology to our local people. I think it sets a good foundation for us to incorporate young people and get them off the streets.
Okay, my final question to you is, there's a culture here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and everybody knows it, that General Powell may be a PAM, Tom Jones might be a Labour. How do you, should you win your seat, as you say you're confident that you're winning, seek to bridge that divide here in St. Kitts and Nevis? Additionally, how are you looking to incorporate the opposition, if they're going to be in opposition, into taking their policies and merging that with what the government have in terms of moving St. Kitts and Nevis forward?
I don't think that myself or my team has a monopoly on ideas. And so if we can get an opposition to do more than just oppose everything the government does and is actually prepared to work alongside, certainly me in a ministerial capacity, I would welcome it. At the end of the day, it's all about what is in the best interest of the people. And to be able to include as many persons and have as many people on board would obviously be the ideal situation. I believe, however, that the government does have its role, and you are the government for particular reason because of the necessary policy differences in policy between you and the opposition, and so it may not always be a practical exercise. But certainly I have no issue working along with a willing and mature opposition to achieve what is in the best interest of the people.
And bridging that divide?
And in terms of bridging the divide, look, you'll always have PAM, you'll always have PAM people, you'll always have Labour people. Everybody can't believe in the same thing. Everybody can't always agree on everything. But I believe if we can educate each other to not hold those differences against each other, if we can get each other to respect the differences and agree to disagree and move along. Look, some of my closest friends are Labour supporters. I know where they stand, they know where I stand, and we never allow that to get between us. And so even in terms of my election and becoming the next representative of constituency number 2, one of the things that I want to ensure that I have is a constituency office. I don't mean a political campaign office, I mean an apolitical constituency office whereby I am going to set a day in every week where I sit and meet with my constituents, whether you be PAM or Labour. There'll be no political paraphernalia, signs or anything like that in this office. This is an office dedicated to serving the people of Central Basque, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of whether you're even registered or not. If you're a constituent, you can come there, and I hope that is a step in terms of that direction, and bridging that divide and ensuring that we all can come together to work towards what is ultimately in the best interest of Central Basque and its people.
All right, thanks. There you had it. That is the People's Action Movement Team Unity Coalition's representative in Constituency 2, Jermine Powell. He's basically outlining some of his plans, and he hasn't yet basically chosen a portfolio that he would like, but like he said, he's an all-rounder, and he's batting wherever the captain of the team, the Prime Minister, decides to put him in the lineup. So he's basically open to going anywhere, but he's outlined his plans and has some interesting plans. But on the day itself, you have to go out to make a decision whichever team you decide you want to go out and vote for. June 5th is the date. Mark that date on your calendar. Polls open at 7 a.m. and runs until about 6 p.m. So go out there and vote.
When you see the look on the face of somebody who really was down and out, and you've been able to do something to help them and make a positive change in their lives, there's nothing like that feeling. I always say I could never win my seat as long as the people that need the help get it. I, for one, believe in improving the standard of life for everybody in the country. Ultimately, that is what keeps me going, helping people. It's not about winning the seat. It's about helping the people that really need the help the most. Having the opportunity to make people feel better and give them the encouragement that we are giving them a platform to prosper and to improve on their living standards. I'm warmed. My heart is warmed. The people must feel better than they were before, and that is what we're here to do.
And nobody gonna deal with Central if John gonna deal with Central. John, I don't fully promise to me many times. I went to John after and talk to him one-on-one, and he come and hear me cry.
Thank you, Jermine Powell, in assisting me in repairing my roof.
Central Bastille is our time. It's Jermine Powell.
John Force, unity again.
The other on your chest. We never gonna rest till everybody bless. Make sure say everybody bless. Yeah, yeah. Mr. One and in the sky. The other on your chest.
St. Kitts and Nevis! The date is set and the heat is on, and there's only one place to get the latest news and insights on the upcoming 2020 general election. ISKN. That's ISKN. Channel 95 on Ultra TV. Watch in-depth talks on issues that matter most. Go digital and take part in our nightly virtual public meetings. Celebrate 5 years of incredible progress with performances from the hottest local and regional entertainment. entertainers. See the world through the eyes of our nation's youth. Get to know your future leaders and their plans for a stronger, safer future. All day, every day. My SKN has you covered. Your all-access link to the political arena is in St. Kitts and Nevis. My rights, my choice, my future. Channel 95 is my SKN. Only on Ultra TV.
Well, we're here discussing elections with incumbent representative for constituency number 1 and Minister of Public Infrastructure, Ian Liburd. So, Mr. Liburd, elections is upon us within a few days. You're running in constituency 1. First up, what are some of the projects or what are some of the initiatives that you would have undertaken in constituency number 1 over the last 5 years?
I want to thank you for the opportunity. Also, at all times, thank Almighty God for such opportunities as well to account for my stewardship over the last 5 years. And I'm not trying to be difficult, but if I have to account for all, I'll spend a long time. I don't know if you afford me that time, but within the constituency or from a national level, they are all well documented in terms of the Island Main Road, the new cruise pier, the Old Road Bay project, and East Bus Line terminal and West Bus Line terminals. But specific to the constituency, we have done, or I have done, quite a lot of projects within the constituency. First and foremost, it's in the Taylor's Village area. We surface every single dirt road in Taylor's Village, much to the pleasure of the residents there. Because prior to coming into office, the residents in Taylor's Village, in particular those in Taylor's East, they for years endured the ash from the sugar factory that really created what was a nuisance period. After the sugar factory closed in 2005, then they endured the dust from those dirt roads, which was part of the development over there. And prior to coming into office, I committed to resurfacing or paving all those roads, and I am humbled and happy to report that I did every single dirt road there. So there's no more dust to dirty your curtains, dirty the house. So that's one major achievement in that area. We also graded the Taylor's playing field, and that too is an important field. The residents in Taylor's, the young men and women in Taylor's had no place to play their games, or the field that was there was literally a pasture. You just run on, the animals would feed. I regraded that playing field and made it more accessible and a field that does accommodate, in fact, the Washington National High School, which is next door, the Beach Island School, and all the people in Taylor's Village. In the constituency, if you look at Bird Rock, we put pedestrian access or sidewalks coming from Bird Rock all the way down to the Bay Road. On Wellington Road, that's major as well. Wellington Road, we're doing all the sidewalks coming down on Wellington Road. And that means a lot to me because I had a neighbor who actually died on Wellington Road going to work one night as a watchman at the SSMC. And as well in the area of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, with the Seventh Adventist school, I should say. The students who pass the everyday, and other residents, they have access, pedestrian access, so they can walk on sidewalks and avoid being exposed to the danger of the oncoming or ongoing traffic. In relation to the paddock, the Ponds Pasture paddock, we also put lights on that paddock, and it's humbling again and heartwarming. I drove across there a few nights ago after midnight, and the young men were playing soccer at midnight. So that there's an avenue created for them to ventilate their energies. Important in the Newtown area per se, and the heart of the constituency, there's the problem of the storm drains, and many of us don't take time to understand that the water that comes from the airport comes down on the west side, comes down the Victoria Road, and the storm drain that comes across Lozak Road by the police station, and from the Wellington Road goes into the storm drains there, and they all end up in the east. So the storm drains on Pond Road, the storm drains on Sandown Road, the storm drains west of the Tucker Clark Primary School, and between the Solbulk installation. Those are very important storm drains, and behind East Street there and Sebastian Street, we fixed those storm drains. In the past, before I entered into office, when a little rain came, that area used to flood. You needed a cataract to get across the Pond Road, get across Frigate Bay Road, and George Street as well. So you see, that's very important, and people take it for granted because rain pours and the traffic flows, no water is running, but those storm drains were actually fixed. Then our predecessors as well created a nuisance for the residents in Johnson Street. That's Johnson Street that comes down from Wellington Road onto Pond Road by Fox Bar there, and goes up to Brand Street there by my good friend Wanga, up to the Seventh Adventist Church, and onto Wellington Road. They created a nuisance for over 20 years, and that nuisance was a bus stop. They made those two streets into a bus stop. Residents in the area couldn't have access to their own property, couldn't park their own vehicles, and the bus drivers, the profanity they use the drains as their washrooms or bathrooms, and the commuters as well going to and from Dieppe via Cairn and Basseterre. They were exposed to the dangers of the traffic, the vagaries of the rain, no way to shelter, and we built, not only eliminated the nuisance on Brand Street and Johnson Street for the residents there, but we created or we constructed a brand new East Bus Line terminal in that particular area.
You mentioned all of that. What would you say is the major project or the major initiative that you, as in your first term, would have undertaken during that 5-year span?
Well, I didn't come to that, but I'm glad you raised it. The elimination, or I should say, the slum clearance in the West Street, Wellington Road area. And I say slum clearance because people lived in an area in conditions that they should not be existing in the 21st century. The houses that were built since the 1950s, early 1950s, those houses on Wellington Road and West Street, which we demolished. That's another commitment I made. We demolished those houses, and we intend to construct some 60 units there, some 10 blocks of 6 units each, so 60 families would benefit from that development. We have completed only 4 units thus far, of 4 blocks of 24 units thus far, and they should have been distributed or allocated, but come next term we will complete that project and that's major for me, to alleviate the slums, or eliminate the slums in the area and create housing for residents in the area.
Okay, you would have done all of that, some significant projects. Now, what are some of the initiatives that you have, should you be re-elected to represent the people of Constituency 1 for the area of constituency, of that particular constituency?
Well, if it's the will of God, come Friday, I look forward to continuing to represent the people of constituency number 1. And it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me because I don't say this in a boastful manner. Since adult suffrage in 1952, and this would be, I think, the 16th election or 15th election, there has never been an elected representative of my constituency who was born, raised, and still live in the constituency. So I'm the first, and I don't say this in a boastful manner. So I look forward to continuing this service to the people whom I know, and the people who know me. In the area of further some clearance, we are going to look at the East Street section of that ponds extension or pond site. In that there are some houses there as well that were built since the 1950s, and we are going to demolish those houses and construct some 20 condominium units there on East Street, and that would transform the East Street. I want to as well look at the play field called the Newtown complex. It's not a stadium. People call it a stadium, but let's call it a complex, right? And I always believe, having played as a representative football for Newtown, I always believe that the configuration of that field, it is wrong. It should be north-south, as most fields should be. So I intend to really reconfigure, realign the field, and have a really modern sporting complex there for Newtown, which is a sporting town, Constituency 1, which is a sporting community, and the championship community. We have won championships in football, cricket, basketball, netball, lawn tennis, table tennis. I believe that that's a legacy I would like to leave. Another legacy, I should say, I'd like to leave in constituency number 1 by providing a modern sporting complex there.
You were the representative, you were the minister, which was basically one of your portfolios, that's water. It's still somewhat of an issue here in St. Kitts and Nevis. How do you plan to remedy that specific issue? I know you had indicated previously that you would have dug some new wells and so forth. What's going on here? Tell us a bit about what you have done with regards to dealing with the water issue, and what are your plans to rectify that in a second term?
Well, I think one has to come to grips with the facts. The facts that we are in an era of what I call climate variability, in that the rainfall patterns have changed. For the first time in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, we had to ration water in 2015 when we just came into office. And we had to ration water because there was a 55% rainfall deficit. All of our water comes from the rainfall. The surface sources and the underground sources, they're all recharged from rainfall. And people have to understand that and accept that. In the Bastille Valley, a lot of discussion has come about the Bastille Valley. The Bastille Valley as well, it was reported since about 10 years ago, and 12 years ago to be exact, out of that study, protection of the Bastille Valley aquifer, that the And the Bastia Valley Aquifer is delineated by the Olives Mountain in the west, the Canada Hills in the northeast, and the Connery Hills in the east. And that water comes all the way underground, percolates underground because of our highly porous soil. We have a soil that's of high porosity, and it trickles down underground and settles in an ocean. So there's an ocean of water underground. The potable water is east of the Kim Collins Highway. To the west of the Kim Collins Highway, there was one well, but most on that side is what we call brackish water. But because of climate variability, again, the sea level is rising, so the aquifer or the ocean of water under there is susceptible to salt intrusion, and so we have attempted to move the wells north of the airport. Over there in Shadwell, we found 2 wells, Shadwell 1 and Shadwell 2, an average of some both combined. It's about, I believe, just over 1 million gallons per day. The Bastia Valley well field provides 2.5 million gallons a day. Development is ongoing. In terms of supply and demand, it's coping. So the only solution to that, respectfully, has to be reverse osmosis, has to be desalination. The 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. Our entire island is covered with water, and we have to go desalination. I know, for example, the farm administration had a desalination plant that could have or should have generated over 1.5 million gallons. It never ever functioned. We looked at it, and we had the vision to relocate it to Basseterre and try to get it operational. It never materialized. We looked at options as well here at Marriott. The Marriott produces water for its golf course and for the hotel itself, and they do have excess of some 500,000 gallons per day, which we could have got from them. The only impediment was the high cost, really, because our water, the cost of water here is highly subsidized. But we believe with the advent of a solar farm, we are constructing a 16 megawatt solar farm just in my constituency, the east of the generation plant. And in the next couple of months, when that is up, we should be able to reduce the cost of electricity and so to the cost of generating that water. Because remember, the underground water, you need electricity because you have to pump the water from underground from the wells into the station up, and one that's cost is reduced as well. But the bottom line is we have to accept in these days of climate variability, we cannot depend on the rain-fed sources.
Yeah. So the government would have constructed a pier under you as the Minister of Public Infrastructure. Just tell us a bit about the pier, how you came up with the pier, and there was some discussion surrounding actually some minor works that need to be completed on the pier. So if you could just tell us a bit about where the pier is at right now.
I believe that we ought to put this into its proper perspective, in that the project had 2 phases. One, the construction of a pier, which is basically complete, and 2, the upland development. And let us recall that our predecessors attempted to construct the pier. You remember that the barges came in here and they disappeared one time, overnight. And when we got into office, we committed to constructing the pier. And within 3 years, we did in fact start the pier and have completed the pier. We started the pier and we done quite a lot of due diligence. It took us 2 years in cabinet before we came to a final decision as it relates to the pier. We had 2 proposals. One proposal from Bazarian, and we know that proposal would have cost us $41 million over a 30-year period, because we were going to cede, to give away the riparian rights, which is the seabed rights, for 30 years. The SCASPA would not have owned the pier, and that is similar to what a model that our predecessors used. And there's the other proposal, which is a proposal from the Canadian Commercial Corporation, which is a statutory corporation of the government of Canada. So it's a government-to-government relationship. And we do have communication, and the intention always was that they will, as per the agreement with CCC and SCASPA, with the 2 government corporations, that they will hand over pay that's fit for purpose. And cost overruns, we have communications that it would be not for the cost, not for the account of SCASPA. Nonetheless, the pier is complete. The pier has been utilized. 4 ships or 2 ships have docked, berthed simultaneously at the pier. There is this talk about not being able to accommodate the Oasis class ships. Now, the pier, and the intention always was to have a pier to accommodate 2 Oasis class ships simultaneously. When the authority and the consultant engineers completed the designs, discussions were held with the technical committee of the Florida Cruise Caribbean Association, the FCC. Their members used the pier. It was recommended that the draft or the depth in the basin, the berthing area should be 37 feet. When SCASPA or the contractor indicated that they had completed the pier, then as per the agreement, an independent bathymetric survey was done, which found that there were some spots that were not as per requirements. So then the pier was not accepted. Then the contractor then continued to do the dredging, and they claim what they call unforeseeable circumstances. And it went to arbitration. Arbitration is a part of the contract, as a part of the agreement. There is no, or there are no cost overruns that SCASPA has conceded to. SCASPA has paid for. Arbitration, I mean, as the Minister of Infrastructure or Transport, as far as on the transport, I mean, it would be a dereliction of my duty if I agreed to pay cost overruns. I mean, if arbitration is completed and they say that it is for the account of SCASPA, I wouldn't feel bad, because I would have stood up and fought for the people of this country. So what I'm doing is the best interest of the country. And I guarantee that when the arbitration will be completed, there will be no cost overruns paid by SCASPA. Yes, it's been a political football. The press has played with it as well. And that makes life's interesting, makes news interesting, getting sensational. But in fact, the pier is complete. It has been used. But the issue of the draft, and I must say as well, there are over 220 cruise ships afloat today. Only 6 of those 220 cruise ships are Oasis class ships. You know, it's hardly likely that you'll have 3 Oasis class ships here berthing simultaneously. But you have to look long term, you know. And the fact that we'll have a facility that can accommodate 3 cruise ships, it's a plus. Antigua and Barbuda are going to do that now. So we are leading in that way, because no other ports in the Caribbean can do that.
You've been talking about the possibility of a third pier. Is that something you're considering in a second term?
Well, it is something we can consider, but let's be realistic. In these times, I mean, you see what happened after the COVID-19, the coronavirus, which led us to the pandemic, and things have changed. We have to recalibrate in terms of our expenditure, because the cruise ship industry came to a halt as well. You know, so I know as I said, there's so many ships out there, over 200 ships, and they'll have to find places to go. But we believe, I'm optimistic that yes, down the road we will need a third pier, because you have seen in the port 6 ships within the port at one time, and our cruise ship arrivals have gone beyond 1 million passengers. So you have to plan for the future, and I think that's something we have not discarded. We look forward to ensure that we remain number 1 within the top 10 ports in the Caribbean, because they are 30% or more, just under 40% of the cruise market is accounted for by the Caribbean ports.
Kitts and Nevis has been seeing significant strides in the tourism sector.
Yes, we have.
In recent years. Let us jump over to electricity. I know you talked about it a bit earlier, but in terms of development, I know when the government came into office, there was talk surrounding some issues in terms of monies owed to PDVSA. Has those funds been cleared up in terms of what was owed to Venezuela?
We entered into agreement with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. I recall in a first bilateral meeting with Venezuela, I accompanied the Prime Minister, and those discussions came up. We found that the Venezuelans were owed over $170 million. I mean, our predecessors never paid their bills. And we entered into agreement. As a matter of fact, it was more than 170. It was almost $200 million. We got a 50% rebate on that amount, and we are paying. We have a 5-year agreement to pay over 5 years. I think it's every 6 months. I'm not too certain, but the agreement is to pay over. When we got into office in 2015, we inherited an electricity system which was weary in terms of the age of lots of the generators. Apart from which, as well, the topic of today was this climate change, and we signed on to COP21, the Paris Agreement, and although our islands are not really the culprits as relates to greenhouse gas emissions, notwithstanding, we also looked at the future, and we took a 3-pronged approach as it relates to the development of electricity within the Federation. The 3-pronged approach looked at energy security, in that we would ensure that we have a stable electricity supply in order to bolster our our development and make it more sustainable. We also looked at the energy access. By that I mean, we believe that every citizen within the Federation ought to have access to affordable electricity, irrespective of their status within society. And of course, I mentioned earlier the energy environment, which deals with the climate change. So we looked first of all at our resources. We are blessed with wind, we are blessed with sunshine, and we are blessed with 2 volcanoes, believe it or not. And we looked at wind energy development. That has taken some time because we inherited discussions as it relates to a PPA agreement with an investor. And what we found in that it required an investment of several $1 million to reconfigure the generating plant. And I found that a little puzzling from the beginning, in that if one is going to provide an intermittent resource, because wind and solar are both intermittent resources. If the wind directions change or they have cloud cover, then it affects the stability of the plant, within the plant. And apart from that, we found that only from an integration study, it informed us that only 20% of that intermittent resource or renewable energy can be integrated into the plant. And something seemed to be wrong. But we were still generating, or at peak period, it is the demand some 27 or 28 megawatts. And 20% of that is 5 megawatts. We were almost there. The solar plant at the Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw Airport, the solar farm there on the south side of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and the wind energy was only 1.8, and that would take us almost to 5 megawatts. So what happens after? Our predecessors were saying we're going to have a green economy, but the approach was really foolhardy. I say so respectfully. So what we did, we changed the approach, and we said that if you are going to provide an intermittent resource to us, you must provide a reliable and stable resource, and that requires storage. And we found that it did not really affect the cost of going up. So it made no sense to invest money to facilitate a resource, energy that's been that we're buying. So we then looked at geothermal. We were aware that geothermal has been spoken about for decades within the region. In nearby Nevis, for over 12 years, they've been discussing the development of geothermal. Well, we took the approach that, and with the former premier, who was very collaborative former premier Vance Amory, and we took the approach that both development in both islands can complement each other. So we took the approach, because there are quite a lot of legacy issues as it relates to the development of geothermal within the region, and even here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and let's not run away from that fact. So we embarked upon it. We did all the 3G studies. We have established that there's a resource in St. Kitts. In Nevis, it's also been established that there is a resource over there. And in St. Kitts, for example, we have not finalized the geothermal incentivization agreement. But one of the things we are always cautious with, especially in terms of developing these renewable resources, is that most investors want exclusivity. I mean, if you're going to develop 5 megawatts, for example, of solar energy, why would the government want to give the exclusivity? Similarly with geothermal. Geothermal is one part of the island, and if you're going to develop 25 megawatts, why do you want exclusivity? I could understand that, but why would we give such exclusivity? So there's where we are with geothermal. We have been more advanced, though, in terms of solar energy development, in that the SCELEC has already signed a power purchase agreement with LaClanche, which is one of the companies, solar energy development companies based in Switzerland. It's a public limited company to produce some 16 megawatts of base load energy in that for about 10 hours, especially during the peak periods, they will generate that energy, which is base load, so there's no fluctuation in that. It was just the COVID pandemic that has stopped us. The agreement has been signed, the incentives have been established, some of the equipment are actually here, but the engineers could not come because of the border closure. So we expect that once the borders will be open, then that will go ahead, and perhaps in the next 6 or 8 months we will have solar energy, and that's very important for us because we believe that even with the water, in water we want to solarize the pumps, but the solar energy, in fact, would help us, would help us to advance the country from a manufacturing perspective, even from the hotels. The hotels use a lot of energy. I mean, to have these air conditioners on all day, and as well the cost of manufacturing will go down, because in most businesses, if not all businesses, I should say, the big cost, the fixed cost is energy, electricity. So I think we are looking, we are quite optimistic, beg your pardon, going forward in terms of renewable energy. And once that solar farm is built out, we intend to have a green economy and build out and move away from this fossil fuel generation.
Okay, with that being said, tell us a bit about the manifesto and what plans went into the manifesto, and what are some of the major takeaways that people can expect from the government should they return to office?
Well, the manifesto is being launched at the risk of talking out of turn. I can say for sure one of the things that would come up out of the manifesto is what I like to refer to as a physical permanence between St. Kitts and Nevis. Lots of people don't recognize or don't even realize, or perhaps just accept it, that when a little rough sea comes around, when there are rough seas here around there, whether in Nevis, sometimes or even St. Kitts, the ferries can't run. During the hurricanes, the ferries can't run. And even now, when we had a COVID, the ferries weren't running. But we intend to have that address and to construct a bridge between St. Kitts and Nevis. That would be a reality under the team unity administration. We also are going to look from an infrastructure standpoint at the congestion that's in lots of areas. If you go to Challenges Village, for example, you see traffic can't flow as it ought to flow. We look at Sandy Point, Cairn, certain areas. So we're going to look at connecting the islands through the the hills and have a highway, a bypass rather, I should say, to the highway and open up the interior of the island, so you can go from Phillips right over to perhaps to Challenges, from the boys area down to Newton Ground. So we're looking at, I don't recall all the areas, but we have identified areas whereby we can reduce the congestion within the villages and have a smoother flow of traffic, and at the same time open up the interior and expand the country.
So what I'm hearing.
We also want to, as well, as a major project, is to refurbish the SSMC railway line, former SSMC railway line. That's an asset that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We have used it for the cruise line. The scenic railway is an anchor of tourism here, cruise tourism in St. Kitts. There was an agreement between the scenic railway and the SSMC. The SSMC should have maintained the line, but the SSMC was closed. We are looking at the agreement, and we are hoping, we intend rather, I should say, to refurbish the entire west line. The east line is operational, but the entire west line, looking for the future, not just for carrying passengers, but to carry heavy loads, heavy cargo, and at some stage passengers as well, because we are one of the few, if not the only country within the Caribbean that has a railway line that encircles the entire island.
Okay, so I'm getting from you that if you're re-elected again, you're going to be the Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy, and so forth. You're keeping your portfolios.
I can't determine that. I've been. I want to believe I did an okay job. I happen to have been the permanent secretary in the particular ministry. I was a minister then, and I think I've led the infrastructure is really the face of government. And when I was asked to lead in the infrastructure development and the national transformation efforts, I believe I did a good job.
Okay, and finally, your elections is several days away, just around the corner, as we have put colloquially. How confident are you that you can bring the seat home, keep the seat yellow?
Well, I don't know if the seat is yellow, it's unity.
You're PAM.
Well, we are past PAM and Labour and CCM and PLP. We are running as a unity. But I understand what you mean. I'll take that nonetheless, right? Because it is the first time we have seen this, and it was not easy. It's the first time that a unity government has really survived and has done so well. And I think a lot of credit has to be given to its leader, our leader, the Prime Minister, who has really, led by example, who has really, led by consensus and has done well. And we see no reason for change, because as someone who endorsed me last night, a small business operator, Mr. Boone, and he said something which humbled me. Well, I'm always humble nonetheless, but which really touched me, in that he said, I'm tried, tested, and true. And I believe, without again trying to sound boastful, that I have done a good job. And I'm going back to the people of my constituency, number one, a constituency in which I said I was born, raised, and still live. I'm going back to the people who know me and whom I know with a performance. They can look at my stewardship and they can mark me. And as I said before, when I came into the arena, political arena, I asked the constituency back then to look at the performance, look at the stewardship of my predecessor. And if my predecessor done well, then I have no chances of election. And the constituency said then, the constituency had a choice between my predecessor and me, and they chose me because he left a legacy of doing nothing. So I would ask them the same question and implore them rather to do the same thing. Look at my stewardship over the last 5 years. At the national level, what have I done? At the domestic level, what have I done? And I believe if one is honest, if one is true, if one is objective, there is no reason to change. Changing is taking a risk. My opponent is the face of a government and a leader that has been tried and has failed. A vote for my opponent is a vote for the past. We are about a stronger, safer future. And if you're going to continue our transformation, the transformation of this country, then you have to stick with unity and you have to stick with Ian Patches Liebert. Doing otherwise is going back to an era of crime, high crime, an era of debt, and an era, beg your pardon, we have a country whose name was blackened all over the world. You had a situation where a prime minister was debarred from entering the United States of America. The first prime minister whose visa was withdrawn. We had a situation where up to now, our visa-free access to Canada it was lifted. We have a situation where the former prime minister cannot go to United Kingdom. So, are we going back to that? No, we can't go back to that. That is going backwards. We are going forward with a stronger, safer future.
Well, there you had it. That was our chit-chat with the incumbent Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy and Water and representative for Constituency 1, Ian Patches Liebert. Do join us again next time as we do another sit-down with the representative from the coalition Team Unity as they run for elections to maintain their seats and the government for St. Kitts and Nevis. Do remember, Election Day is June 5th, so do go out and cast your vote for whichever party you feel happy to. Until then, it's so long.
About 7 years ago, when I was approached to run for office, I was humbled by the fact that I was considered worthy of being someone that can lead the constituency. Since adult suffrage in the 1950s, we have had 15 elections in this country, going back from the days of St. Kitts, Nevis and Anguilla. And it is the first time that constituency number 1 has an elected representative who was born, who was raised, and who still lives in the constituency. So I know it because I've lived through it. We've done quite a lot in the community. The East Bus Line Terminal, for example. We resurfaced every single dirt road in Taylor's Village. The paddock, Pons Pasture, we provided lights. We've addressed the area in Wellington Road and West Street in the process of demolishing the remaining houses that were built since the 1950s. Based on performance, I want to put all this before the people. And if the people continue to say that I've performed, and if it's the will of God that I be re-elected to office, I'm ready to serve.
St. Kitts and Nevis, the date is set and the heat is on, and there's only one place to get the latest news and insights on the upcoming 2020 general election. ISKN, that's ISKN, Channel 95 on Ultra TV. Watch in-depth talks on issues that matter most. Go digital and take part in our nightly virtual public meetings. Celebrate 5 years of incredible progress with performances from the hottest local and regional entertainers. See the world through the eyes of our nation's youth. Get to know your of future leaders and their plans for a stronger, safer future. All day, every day. My SKN has you covered. Your all-access link to the political arena is in St. Kitts and Nevis. My rights, my choice, my future. Channel 95 is my SKN. Only on Ultra TV.